There are moments in life when the weight on your shoulders feels unbearable. Times when the doctor's report is devastating, when your finances are in ruins, when the people you counted on have walked away. Maybe you've been there, or maybe you are there right now. In these moments, people search for answers, for light, for a reason to keep going. I want you to stay with me today, because what I'm about to share may be the turning point you've been waiting for. If you've ever longed for healing, if you've ever cried out for hope, then don't miss a single word, because prayer holds the key. Prayer is not some cold ritual, not empty words thrown into the air. It is the living connection between you and the God who hears, who sees, who cares. When you pray, you are speaking to the one who created the universe yet knows your name. The one who formed the stars also formed your heart, and he listens when you call. That is why prayer brings healing. That is why prayer brings hope. I have seen it with my own eyes, people broken in body, people broken in spirit, finding strength where there was none. Not because of a man, not because of a formula, but because prayer reached the throne of God and God answered. Prayer changes things because prayer changes people. When you kneel in faith, you rise in power. Some of you have been told it's too late. The sickness is too advanced. The damage is too deep. The relationship is too far gone. But I'm here to tell you, there is no such thing as too late with God. Prayer steps into the impossible and makes it possible. It breathes life into dead situations. It turns tears into testimonies. And prayer doesn't just heal the body, it heals the heart. It restores hope when fear has taken over. It whispers peace into the storms of life. You may not see the answer right away, but the moment you pray, something shifts in the unseen realm. God begins to move on your behalf. Stay with me because I want you to hear this. Prayer is not about begging, it is about believing. It's not about the length of your words, but the depth of your faith. When you pray with a believing heart, heaven responds. I invite you today to make prayer your lifeline. Let it be your first response, not your last resort. Open your heart, speak your needs, and trust that God is where there comes a point in every person's life when strength alone isn't enough, when the answers you seek seem hidden behind walls you can't break through, when life itself feels like it is caving in from all sides. You look around for help, for someone to understand the ache in your heart, the confusion in your mind, the weariness in your soul, and yet no one truly sees what you carry. It is in these moments, when human ability reaches its limit, that the power of prayer becomes clearer than ever before. Prayer is not just speaking words into an empty space. It is not a religious duty to be checked off a list. Prayer is a living, breathing connection with the creator of the universe, the one who formed the stars yet knows your name, the one who holds galaxies in place yet listens when you whisper his name in the dark of night. There is a power in prayer that goes beyond human understanding because it moves beyond the natural and reaches into the supernatural. When you pray, you are stepping into a conversation with the God who holds all power, the God whose word can speak light into darkness and life into death. That is why prayer changes things. It is not because of the perfection of the one who prays, but because of the power of the one who hears. People often say, I don't even know how to pray, as if prayer requires eloquence or memorized phrases. But prayer is not about fancy words. It is about a sincere heart reaching out to God. It can be whispered through tears, spoken in brokenness, or even breathed silently when no words come at all. Yet in that moment, heaven leans in. God listens, and things begin to move that you cannot see. The power of prayer lies in the fact that it connects human need with divine supply. Think about it when you pray. You are inviting the one who created everything into the situation you are facing. You are opening the door for God's wisdom, strength, and peace to come rushing into the chaos of your life. That is why people who pray experience a strength they cannot explain, a peace that makes no sense to the human mind, a hope that refuses to be shaken even when circumstances look the same. Prayer brings you into alignment with God's purposes, and when you align with Him, His power begins to work in ways you could never accomplish on your own. I have seen people on the edge of giving up who found courage through prayer. I have seen families restored because someone fell to their knees and refused to stop praying. I have seen bodies healed when doctors had no answers left to give. And every time the common factor was not human effort, but divine power released through prayer, because prayer invites God into the story, and when God steps in, nothing stays the same. Some people think of prayer as a last resort, something you do when everything else has failed. But the real power of prayer comes when it becomes your first response. When trouble comes, when fear rises, when decisions have to be made, the very first thing you do should be to turn your heart toward God. Why? Because prayer shifts the atmosphere. It takes the burden off your shoulders and places it into the hands of the one who can carry it. It reminds you that you are not alone in the fight, that you don't have to figure everything out by yourself. The weight that was crushing you a moment ago begins to lift, because prayer connects you to the source of all strength. And prayer is not limited by distance or time. You can be on one side of the world praying for someone on the other side, and God's power can touch them right where they are. You can pray today and see answers unfold tomorrow, next week, or even years later, because prayer never dies. It keeps working, moving, shifting things even when you cannot see the evidence right away. That is why you must never give up praying, even when it feels like nothing is happening. The power of prayer often works beneath the surface before it breaks through invisible ways. One of the most amazing things about prayer is how it changes not only circumstances, but also the person who prays. You may come to God overwhelmed, angry, or afraid, but as you pour out your heart, something begins to happen inside you. Peace starts replacing anxiety. Strength rises where weakness used to be. Hope takes root again where despair had ground. It's not always the situation around you that changes first. Sometimes it is the storm inside you that calms before anything else does. And that inner transformation gives you the courage to keep walking, to keep believing, to keep standing strong until the answer comes. Prayer is powerful because it reaches the heart of God, but it also reshapes the heart of the one who prays. It teaches trust. It teaches patience. It teaches surrender. And in that surrender, there is a freedom that no one can take away from you, because you know you are held by something greater than yourself. There will always be voices telling you that prayer is a waste of time, that you need to be practical, that talking to God won't change anything. But those voices forget one thing: prayer has been moving mountains long before any of us were here, and it will keep moving mountains long after those voices are silent. The sick have been healed, the hopeless have found purpose, and impossible doors have opened because someone chose to believe in the power of prayer. So if you are standing at a crossroads today, if you are staring at a situation that feels too heavy, too complicated, too far gone, I urge you to pray. Even if it's just a few words, even if all you can say is, God help me, because prayer is not about the length of your words, it's about the faith in your heart. One simple, sincere prayer can begin a chain of events that changes everything. And here is the best part: you don't have to be perfect to pray. You don't have to have it all together. Prayer is for the broken, the weary, the uncertain, the ones who feel like they've failed too many times. God listens not because we are worthy, but because He is loving. Every time you pray, you are stepping into a conversation with the one who has the power to heal, to restore, to provide, to guide, and to give hope when there seems to be none. That is the power of prayer, and it is available to you right now, King, even when you can't see it. Because prayer brings healing, prayer brings hope, and what He has done for others, He can do for you. There is something remarkable that happens when faith takes root deep within the human heart. Faith is not blind optimism or wishful thinking. It is the confident trust in a God who has the power to do the impossible. When life hurts, when sickness strikes, when relationships crumble, when hope fades, faith steps in as the lifeline that connects us to the source of all healing. It does not ignore reality or pretend the pain isn't there. Instead, faith looks straight at the impossible and declares that God is bigger. Healing through faith is one of the most profound experiences a person can have, because it requires you to believe in what you cannot yet see, to hold on when everything around you tells you to give up. Faith is the bridge between our deepest needs and God's unlimited power. Imagine standing on one side of a raging river called fear, sickness, loss, or despair with no way across. On the other side lies healing, peace, restoration, and hope. That bridge is faith. It carries you over what you cannot cross on your own. Without it, you stay stuck in the pain, but with it, you step into a place where miracles can happen. Faith doesn't create the power. God already has the power. What faith does is open the door for His power to flow into our lives. So often people pray for healing, but secretly doubt whether anything will change. Their words say one thing, but their hearts hold back. Yet healing flows when faith rises. Faith is like the hands that reach out to receive what God is ready to give. You may not understand how or when the healing will come, but faith says, I believe it's possible, because nothing is impossible with God. Faith keeps praying even when the answer hasn't appeared yet. It keeps standing even when circumstances look worse before they get better. It keeps hoping even when others tell you to give up. I have seen people whose doctors gave up on them walk out of hospital rooms completely healed because they chose to believe when every medical report said otherwise. I have seen marriages that were on the edge of divorce become stronger than ever because one or both partners refused to stop praying and believing for restoration. I have seen people crushed by grief find peace that carried them through the darkest valley because faith reminded them that God was with them even when life felt unbearable. Healing through faith is not limited to the body alone. It touches the mind, the emotions, the spirit. It reaches every part of who we are. But here is the challenging: faith requires trust, And trust is hard when life has let you down. It is hard to trust when prayers seem unanswered, when you've been disappointed, when the pain lingers longer than you expected. Yet faith doesn't deny the struggle. It simply chooses to believe that the story is not over. Faith says, I may not see the ending yet, but I know the one who writes the ending. And because you know his character, his goodness, his love, his faithfulness, you dare to trust him even in the waiting. Sometimes healing is instant. Other times it is a process. There are moments when God steps in and the sickness is gone, the pain disappears, the situation turns around in an instant. Those moments leave us in awe because they remind us of his power. But there are also times when healing comes slowly, step by step, day by day, as faith keeps holding on. The process may feel long, but the growth that happens inside you during that time shapes your heart in ways that a quick answer never could. You learn perseverance. You learn to listen for God's voice. You learn that healing is not just about the outcome, but about the journey of walking with him through the valley until you reach the other side. Faith-driven healing also transforms how you see yourself. Pain has a way of making you feel small, forgotten, powerless. It whispers lies like, this will never change, or you'll never get better. But faith counters every lie with truth. It tells you that you are not forgotten, that God sees you, that his power is greater than your pain. Faith lifts your eyes off the problem and fixes them on the healer. And as you focus on him, fear begins to shrink, hope begins to rise, and healing begins to flow, not just in your circumstances, but in your heart. There is a story of a woman who had been sick for years, suffering in silence, rejected by society with no answers left. She heard that Jesus was passing by and believed that if she could just touch the edge of his garment, she would be healed. She pushed through the crowd, reached out in faith, and in that moment, power flowed from him, and she was made whole. What changed her life was not just her need, because many in that crowd had needs. It was her faith. She believed enough to act, to reach, to expect something to happen. Healing through faith requires that same boldness, to believe that God can meet you right where you are, even if others doubt, even if the situation looks hopeless. And here is something important. Faith is not about pretending you have no doubts or fears. It is about choosing to trust God in spite of them. The presence of faith doesn't mean the absence of questions or struggles. It means that in the middle of your questions, you decide to hold on to God's promises anyway. You keep praying. You keep believing. You keep declaring that he is your healer, your restorer, your source of strength, even when feelings tell you otherwise. Healing through faith is also about surrender. It is trusting that God knows the best way to answer your prayer. Sometimes we come to him with our own ideas of how and when he should work, but faith says, Lord, I trust you even if the answer comes differently than I expect. That surrender brings peace because you no longer carry the weight of trying to control everything. You place it all in his hands, knowing he loves you and will work all things for your good. So if you are longing for healing today, whether in your body, your heart, your mind, or your circumstances, let faith rise within you. Speak God's promises over your situation. Pray with expectation, not hesitation. Refuse to let fear have the final word. Choose to believe that the same power that healed in the past is still at work today. And as you hold on in faith, watch how hope begins to bloom again, how strength returns, how peace settles over you like a warm bath. There are seasons in life when darkness seems to settle in like an unwelcome guest that refuses to leave. It might be the darkness of loss, where someone you loved is suddenly gone, leaving a hollow space in your heart. It might be the darkness of sickness, where pain lingers day after day, draining your strength and your joy. It might be the darkness of broken relationships, of dreams shattered, of opportunities slipping through your fingers. Sometimes it is not just one thing, but a heavy combination of burdens that leaves you wondering if the light will ever shine again. It is in these times when hope feels like a fragile candle flickering in the wind, ready to go out at any moment. Yet it is precisely in the deepest darkness that hope becomes the most powerful force you can hold on to, because hope refuses to let the night win. Hope in times of darkness is not about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It is not about putting on a fake smile while inside you are breaking apart. Hope is honest. It acknowledges the pain, the confusion, the questions that have no answers. But hope also dares to believe that this is not the end of the story. It whispers that there is more ahead, that the darkness will not last forever, that somewhere beyond the night the sun will rise again. Hope keeps you moving forward when everything in you wants to stop. It is the quiet strength that says, I will not give up, even when you feel like you have nothing left. I have met people who have walked through seasons so dark that they thought they would never recover, grief so heavy they could barely breathe, financial loss so great they didn't know how to start again, illness so severe the doctors had no answers. And yet I have watched those same people rise again, slowly, painfully at times, but rise nonetheless because hope kept them alive inside. They chose to believe that what they were going through was not permanent, that there was something beyond the pain, even when they could not see it. Hope in times of darkness is not just a feeling, it is a choice. Feelings come and go. Some days you wake up with a little bit of strength, other days you can barely get out of bed, but hope is deeper than emotions. It is a decision you make to trust that the light will return even when the night feels endless. It is deciding to keep going when everything tells you to quit. That choice does not always change your circumstances immediately, but it changes you. It keeps your spirit alive when everything else is falling apart. And the amazing thing about hope is that it has a way of growing even in the hardest soil. Think of a tiny green shoot pushing up through concrete. It should not be able to survive there, yet it does because life finds a way. That is what hope does in your heart. Even when everything around you feels hard and cold, hope finds a way to break through. It might start small, just a thought, a prayer, a single step forward, but if you nurture it, it grows stronger. And as it grows, it gives you the courage to face one more day, to take one more step, to keep believing that better things are still possible. Hope often begins in prayer, because prayer lifts your eyes from the darkness around you to the God who holds the future. When you pray, you are reminded that you are not carrying your pain alone, that there is someone greater than you who sees the whole picture when you can only see the storm. Prayer breathes life into hope, because it reminds you that the darkness is not all there is. It connects you to the one who can bring beauty out of ashes, joy out of mourning, strength out of weakness. Sometimes people around you may not understand your hope. They might tell you to be realistic, to accept that things will never change. But hope is not denial, it is defiance. It looks at the reality of pain, yet chooses to believe in the possibility of something better. It refuses to let despair have the final word. History is full of people who faced impossible odds, yet held on to hope and saw breakthroughs that others thought would never come. When you have hope, you begin to see possibilities where others see dead ends. You begin to dream again even when the past tried to crush your dreams. You start expecting good things even when bad things have surrounded you. Hope keeps you looking for the light instead of staring at the darkness. And as you keep looking, you often find doors opening, opportunities appearing, strength returning in ways you did not expect. There is something contagious about hope as well. When you carry hope in your heart, it spreads to the people around you. Your courage inspires someone else to keep going. Your refusal to give up gives strength to someone who is about to quit. I have seen whole families change because one person decided to hold on to hope when everyone else was ready to surrender. That one spark lit a fire that gave them all the strength to push through the storm together. Hope also teaches you patience. Darkness does not disappear overnight. Healing takes time. Rebuilding takes time. Waiting for answers takes time. But hope gives you the strength to endure the waiting without collapsing under it. It tells you that even though you cannot see it yet, something is happening in the unseen. The seed planted in the soil takes time before it breaks through the surface, but just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't growing. Hope reminds you that delays are not denials, that waiting seasons are not wasted seasons, that God can work in the silence as much as in the breakthroughs. If you are walking through darkness right now, I want to tell you this: you are stronger than you feel, and the night will not last forever. Do not let the pain of this moment convince you that there is no future. Do not let the heaviness of today make you forget that tomorrow can hold something different. Hold on to hope even if it feels small. Speak it over your life. Pray it into your circumstances. Surround yourself with people who encourage it, because hope is like a light in the window, guiding you home when everything around you feels lost. And one day, often when you least expect it, the darkness begins to lift. The morning comes. The heavy weight on your chest starts to ease. The laughter returns. The strength rises again. The answers you've been waiting for begin to unfold. And when that happens, you will look back and realize that it was hope that carried you through the valley when nothing else could. Blanket, and how healing, in ways big and small, begins to unfold in your life. There is something undeniably powerful about seeing real lives transformed through the power of prayer. Stories have a way of touching our hearts in ways that theories never can. You can listen to explanations, read books, or hear countless sermons about faith and prayer, but when you witness someone's life completely turned around, when you see hope rise out of despair and strength emerge from weakness, it leaves an imprint on your soul that cannot be erased. Real life transformations carry a weight of truth because they show us that prayer is not just an idea, it is living, breathing power at work in ordinary people's lives. I have seen people who were at rock bottom find a new beginning when everyone else had counted them out. I have watched individuals walk into a room weighed down by years of pain and walk out with tears of relief streaming down their faces because something shifted deep inside them through prayer. It is one thing to talk about healing and hope. It is another thing entirely to see it unfold before your very eyes. When that happens, you realize that no situation is too hopeless, no life is too broken, no heart is too shattered for God to reach through prayer and bring transformation. Consider the person who has battled addiction for years, losing job after job, relationship after relationship, watching everything crumble while feeling trapped in a cycle they cannot break. Friends walk away, family grows tired, society labels them as lost causes. Yet I have seen men and women in that exact situation fall to their knees in prayer, asking for help from a God they barely even know. And slowly but surely change begins to happen. The cravings lose their power, the destructive patterns begin to break. Relationships start to mend, a new identity forms not as addicts or failures, but as people restored with dignity, purpose, and hope. That is the power of prayer. It reaches into places human effort cannot, reshaping lives from the inside out. Then there are stories of physical healing. Doctors deliver grim reports. Diagnoses come with words like incurable or terminal. Families brace themselves for the worst, clinging to whatever strength they can find. And yet, I have seen those very families gather in prayer, refusing to let fear have the final word. Sometimes the healing comes suddenly, defying all medical explanation. Other times it comes gradually as treatments begin to work in ways no one expected. And in some cases, the healing is not just in the body, but in the heart. Peace floods the soul, fear lifts, and strength to face each day replaces despair. Prayer transforms not only circumstances, but the people walking through them, giving them courage they did not have before. One of the most beautiful things about real life transformations is how they ripple outward. When one life changes, it affects everyone connected to it. A father finding freedom from anger and addiction becomes a better husband, a better dad, changing the entire atmosphere of his home. A young woman overcoming depression through prayer goes on to encourage others facing the same battle, spreading hope like seeds into countless lives. A business leader who once lived with constant anxiety finds peace through faith and begins leading with compassion rather than fear, impacting employees and families he may never even meet. Transformation through prayer is never contained to just one person. It spreads like light breaking through darkness, touching everyone in its path. I remember meeting a man who had lost everything, his job, his marriage, his sense of purpose. He was ready to give up completely, convinced that his life was beyond repair, but someone told him about the power of prayer, and though he doubted at first, he decided to try. At first, nothing seemed to change. Days turned into weeks. But as he kept praying, something inside him began to shift. The anger started to fade. The shame loosened its grip. Slowly, opportunities began to open. He found work again. He reconnected with his children. He discovered a sense of worth and direction he had never known before. Looking back, he said the external changes were amazing, but the real transformation happened inside his heart. Prayer gave him back his hope, his peace, and his will to live. And isn't that what so many people long for? A fresh start, a second chance, a way out of the mess they feel trapped in. Real life transformations remind us that no one is beyond the reach of God's grace. You can be standing in the ruins of your decisions, facing consequences you never thought you would face, and yet prayer can meet you right there, turning ashes into something beautiful. Prayer has a way of breaking chains that nothing else can. People carry invisible chains of guilt, fear, regret, and pain that weigh them down for years. They smile on the outside while carrying heaviness inside that no one else sees. But when they begin to pray, those chains start to loosen. The weight begins to lift. They discover forgiveness where there was only shame. They find peace where there was only anxiety. They feel love where there was only loneliness. And as those chains fall, lives change in ways that no self-help book or motivational talk could ever accomplish, because this change is not just about willpower. It is about divine power touching human hearts. Even communities have been transformed by prayer. There are towns where violence, addiction, and division once tore people apart, yet small groups of people began to pray faithfully for change. Over time, crime rates dropped, families were restored, schools improved, and hope returned where despair once ruled. It didn't happen overnight, but prayer created a shift that could be seen and felt by everyone living there. Real life transformations remind us that prayer is not weak or passive. It is active, powerful, and world-changing. And perhaps one of the greatest transformations happens when people discover their true purpose through prayer. Many wander through life feeling empty, chasing success or approval, yet never feeling fulfilled. But in prayer, they begin to hear God's direction for their lives. They realize they were made for more than just existing or surviving. They find gifts they never knew they had, courage to pursue dreams they once thought were impossible, and strength to keep going when challenges come. A transformed life is not just healed from the past, it is empowered for the future. What makes these stories so compelling is that they are real. These are not fairy tales or distant legends. They are ordinary people, neighbors, co-workers, friends, family members, whose lives were changed because prayer connected them to a power greater than themselves. And every story carries the same message. If it happened for them, it can happen for you. No situation is too hopeless, no life too broken, no mistake too great for God to redeem through the power of prayer. So when you hear about real life transformations, let them ignite hope inside you. Let them remind you that your story is not over, that the same God who turned their lives around can do the same for you. Because every prayer you whisper carries the potential for transformation, and you never know when the breakthrough you've been waiting for will come. There is a strength that rises in a person's heart when they place their full confidence in God, a strength that does not come from personality, talent, or circumstances, but from an unshakable trust in the one who holds the universe together. Life will always have moments that test us, seasons where everything familiar seems to collapse, where plans fall apart, relationships break, health weakens, and questions outnumber answers. In those moments, people search for something to hold on to, something stable in a world that keeps shaking. That is why unshakable confidence in God is so powerful. It gives you an anchor when the storms come, a foundation that does not crumble no matter how hard the winds blow. Confidence in God does not mean you have all the answers. It does not mean you understand why everything happens or when things will get better. It means you have settled deep inside your heart that God is who He says He is, faithful, good, loving, and powerful. And because of that, you can trust Him even when life makes no sense. It is the quiet assurance that even when you cannot see the road ahead, God sees it. Even when you feel surrounded by uncertainty, He is not shaken. And when you hold on to Him, you discover a peace and courage that nothing in this world can give. I have seen people walk through circumstances that would crush most hearts, yet they stand tall, not because they are stronger than everyone else, but because their confidence is in God, not in themselves. When a diagnosis comes that shakes the family, when the job is lost, when the future feels uncertain, they pray, they believe, and they keep moving forward because they know the one holding their lives is greater than anything against them. That kind of confidence is not loud or arrogant. It is steady, unmovable, like a rock in the middle of crashing waves. When your confidence is in people, you can be disappointed because people fail. When your confidence is in money, it can disappear overnight. When your confidence is in your own strength, it can crumble under pressures too heavy to carry. But when your confidence is in God, it rests on something eternal, something unchanging. God does not fail. He does not abandon. He does not panic when things get difficult. He does not get surprised by anything that happens in your life. When you put your trust in Him, you are placing your life in the hands of someone who sees the end from the beginning, who knows how to turn every setback into a setup for something greater. There is a story told of a man who built his house on rock while another built his on sand. When the storm came, the house on sand collapsed, but the one on the rock stood firm. Life storms are not optional. They come to everyone, but the foundation you choose determines whether you stand or fall. Unshakable confidence in God is that solid rock. It keeps you standing when others fall apart because your hope is not built on circumstances, but on the character of the God who never changes. Sometimes people mistake confidence in God for an easy life, but the truth is that confidence often grows strongest in the hardest seasons. It is in the waiting rooms of life, when prayers seem unanswered, when dreams are delayed, when doors stay closed, that confidence learns to take root. It is one thing to trust God when everything goes your way. It is another to trust Him when nothing does. Yet those who hold on in faith through the darkest nights come out stronger, with a confidence no storm can shake, because they have seen firsthand that God can be trusted even in the fire. I have met people who lost everything yet carried a joy and peace that defied logic. They should have been bitter, but instead they radiated hope. They should have been fearful, but they walked with courage. When I asked them how they could be so strong, their answer was always the same: because my confidence is in God. They understood something life-changing, that no matter what happens around them, the God within them is greater. Unshakable confidence in God also changes the way you pray. When you truly trust Him, your prayers stop sounding like desperate begging and start sounding like conversations with a Father who loves you. You pray with expectation instead of fear, with peace instead of panic. You believe that He hears you, that He cares, that He is already working on your behalf even when you cannot see it yet. That kind of faith draws strength from knowing that God's timing is perfect, His wisdom is flawless, and His love never fails. There will always be voices of doubt. Some will say you are foolish to keep believing. Others will tell you to give up because nothing seems to be changing. But unshakable confidence in God silences those voices with truth. It reminds you of past victories, of times when God showed up before, of prayers He answered when you least expected it. When you remember what He has already done, it becomes easier to trust Him for what He has not yet done. Confidence in God also gives you the courage to take steps of faith. Some people wait until everything feels certain before moving forward, but faith often requires action before clarity. When you trust God, you step out even when you cannot see the whole path, because you know the one who called you is faithful to guide you. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in life come after someone decided to trust God enough to move forward despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite opposition. Another powerful thing about unshakable confidence in God is how it impacts the people around you. When others see your peace in the middle of chaos, your faith in the middle of storms, your courage when things look impossible, it inspires them to believe too. Your trust becomes a testimony, a living example that if God can carry you through the fire, He can carry them too. Confidence in God is contagious. It spreads hope in a world drowning in fear. And let's be honest, trusting God does not mean life will always go the way you want. There will be disappointments, delays, and detours. But confidence in God keeps you steady because you believe His plan is bigger than your understanding. It gives you rest in the middle of unanswered questions because you trust the heart of the one who holds the answers. You learn to say, even if I don't see it yet, I know He is good. Even if I don't understand it now, I know He is working for my good. That is the kind of confidence nothing can shake. So when life feels uncertain, when the ground beneath you feels unsteady, anchor your heart in God's faithfulness. Remind yourself of His promises. Speak His truth over your fears. Pray with boldness, believe with courage, and refuse to let circumstances dictate your faith. Because when your confidence is in God, you are standing on a foundation that will never fail, no matter how fierce the storm, no matter how long the night, no matter how great the battle. That is the power of unshakable confidence in God. It keeps you standing, keeps you believing, keeps you moving forward when everything around you tries to push you back. There comes a point in every message, in every prayer, in every moment of truth when simply listening is not enough anymore. A point when words must turn into decisions, when faith must move from the heart into action. This is that moment right now, because everything we have spoken about, healing, hope, confidence, prayer, trust, it cannot simply remain as beautiful ideas or inspiring thoughts. If all we do is nod our heads and feel good for a few minutes but go home unchanged, then we have missed the purpose entirely. The call to action is the bridge between what you have heard and the life you are meant to live. It is the moment you decide that things will not stay the same, that the change you desire, the healing you need, the breakthrough you are seeking will start right here and right now with a choice to believe, a choice to act, a choice to surrender everything into the hands of the God who loves you. So I am speaking to you directly, as if we were standing face to face, because this is personal. You may have been carrying burdens for so long that you no longer remember what peace feels like. You may have been praying for healing in your body, in your family, in your finances, and nothing seems to be changing. You may have dreams inside your heart that feel buried beneath disappointment and delays. Maybe fear has been holding you back, whispering that things will never change, that you will always be stuck right where you are. But I came to tell you this. You do not have to stay where you are. You do not have to keep living beneath the weight of fear, sickness, or hopelessness. You do not have to keep replaying the same old story of defeat in your mind. There is a new story waiting to be written, but it will only begin when you decide to rise up in faith and take hold of it. And yes, it takes courage. It takes the kind of courage that looks at the impossible and says, I will not be moved. It takes the courage to trust when everything in you screams to give up. It takes courage to open your heart one more time after disappointment has slammed the door shut. But here is the truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. And when you place that courage in the hands of God, when you say, Lord, I don't have it all figured out, but I trust you, something begins to shift in the atmosphere around you. Because faith is not passive. Faith is active. It speaks, it moves, it takes steps even when it cannot see the whole path. Think about this. Every miracle in Scripture, every breakthrough in history began with someone taking a step. The blind man cried out for Jesus even when others told him to be quiet. The woman with the issue of blood pushed through the crowd just to touch the hem of his garment. The friends of a paralyzed man tore open a roof to lower him before the healer because the door was blocked. Every single one of them could have stayed silent. They could have let fear or doubt stop them. But they acted. They moved. They refused to let the moment pass them by. And because of that, they received what they were longing for. The same God who answered them is here right now, waiting for you to take that same step of faith. The call to action is not just about asking God for help. It is about aligning your life with His power and His promises. It means letting go of excuses, letting go of everything holding you back, and saying, I am ready for change. Too many times we wait for the perfect moment for everything to line up, for the fear to vanish before we act. But the perfect moment rarely comes. Faith moves first, and the miracle follows. It may start with something as simple as a prayer spoken from the heart, or a decision to forgive someone who hurt you, or the courage to start again after failure. Whatever it is for you, today is the day to do it. Maybe you have been waiting for a sign that it is your time, waiting for someone to tell you that things can turn around. Well, consider this your sign. Consider these words your confirmation. The doors of healing, hope, and restoration swing wide open when faith walks toward them. But you must be the one to walk. No one can do it for you. Not your family, not your friends, not even the people praying for you. This is between you and God. He is ready, but He is waiting for you to move. And let me tell you something powerful. Action is the language of faith. You can say you believe, but until you act on that belief, it stays as words in the air. When you pray, believe that heaven hears you. When you forgive, believe that God will heal your heart. When you step out toward that dream, believe that He will make a way where there seems to be no way. That is what this moment is all about. Choosing to believe so strongly that it moves you to do something you have never done before. Some of you listening right now are standing at a crossroads. One road leads to the same life you have always known, safe, predictable, but full of the same struggles and fears. The other road leads to healing, to hope, to freedom, but it requires faith. It requires you to take the first step without seeing the whole staircase. It requires trust in the one who holds the future even when you cannot see it. The choice is yours. And here is the truth. Not choosing is a choice. Staying where you are is a choice. But so is rising up in faith and daring to believe that your life can change. There are moments in life when everything shifts, moments you look back on and say, that was the day everything turned around. I believe this can be that moment for you. Not because of anything I have said, but because God is ready to meet you right where you are. He does not ask for perfection. He asks for faith. He does not wait for you to have it all together. He simply waits for you to come as you are with all your doubts, all your fears, all your broken pieces, and place them in His hands. That is when healing begins. That is when hope rises. That is when the impossible becomes possible. So here is the call to action. Do not leave this moment the same way you came. Pray like you have never prayed before. Believe like you have never believed before. Take that step you have been afraid to take. Forgive the person you have been holding bitterness against. Start the dream you have been delaying. Whatever it is, do it now, because faith without action is like a seed that never gets planted. It will never produce a harvest. But the moment you plant it, the moment you act on what you believe, you set into motion a chain of events that can change everything. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait for someone else to move first. The time is now. The door is open. The power of God is here. Take the step. Pray the prayer. Believe again, because on the other side of action, on the other side of faith, is the healing and hope you have been longing for all along.